Welcome everyone to Planning and Zoning meeting, June 27th. Not July yet.
All right.
We'll start with a roll call.
Garner is absent. Miller is currently absent. Daffer is absent. Turner?
Here.
Kehoe?
Here.
Morgan?
Here.
Kirkman is absent. Selman?
Here.
Van Acker Jr.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Excellent. Let's go ahead and get started with council report, if there is any.
There is. Thank you, Chairman and members of the commission. There's three things to report on from the June 20th City Council meeting. The first one is, if you may remember, the Stoddard Crossing subdivision. It's been before you a few times. You all recommended approval of that 92-lot subdivision. They have chosen to continue it to the July 17th meeting because they still had some questions about the number of lots, if that was appropriate, the amount of open space, and the access, because there still is only the one access off of Locust, and so they are concerned about that. So they're having some more conversations. They're going to bring it back in front of them mid-July. They had a variance for a lot split. This person wanted to split their single lot into two buildable lots, but both of those lots would have been 5,800 square feet, which is under the 6,000 square foot minimum required lot size. They approved that variance because it was only like 150 square feet off, so they went ahead and approved that. And then the third thing was a reconsideration of a project that you all heard back in February at 1510 West Karcher Road, right behind Lowe's. There's a property that asked for a comprehensive plan amendment and a rezone from commercial to industrial to be able to continue the storage of their heavy equipment and then screen it. You recommended approval in February. City Council then denied it in March. They applied for a reconsideration, and upon reconsideration, City Council approved it. So that's all I've got for you.
Did they make any changes to the plan or?
No.
No?
No, I think they just came back with, the applicant was unable to attend the city council meeting. I think his brother was there representing the project, and so I think this time he was able to give some more specific details about what he was doing on the property.
Okay. Anything else?
That's it?
No other communication?
Nope.
All right. I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second. It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, the consent agenda is approved, and we will start the public hearings in 1 minute. We have 5 on the agenda tonight, but 2 of those, the first and the last, have been withdrawn, so we have 3 items this evening. And we'll start with the applicant. They'll come up and give their presentation. They've got 7 minutes to present, tell us what they want to do, and then we'll hear from the city staff. After the staff report, if we have, we'll open the public testimony portion of the hearing, and if you haven't already and you want to speak, sign up on the back with Parker. He's got the iPad. You have to sign up if you would like to speak, or if you'd like to be on the record for, against, or undecided on the proposal. So Karen will call you up in the order that you're signed up, and you've got 3 minutes to give us your testimony and tell us what you're feeling about the application we're hearing. After everyone's testified, we'll bring the applicant back up to address any concerns with those items, and then we'll close the public hearing, deliberate, and make a decision on each item. So that's kind of the lay of the land, and it's 6 o'clock. I've talked for 1 minute, so we can go ahead and start. We'll start with the first item on the agenda, actually the second, but the first is withdrawn, is a conditional use permit for a daycare for up to 12 children in the RS6 zone at 7679 East Savannah River Street. Virginia Barnhart Cherry Blossoms Child Care is the applicant here this evening. Come on up, state your name and address for the record, and then tell us what your plan is.
Good evening. My name is Jenna Barnhart, and I live at 7679 East Savannah River Street. I am here tonight to request approval of a conditional use permit for an in-home daycare, which will allow me to care for 7 to 12 children in my home. I have read the letters submitted both for and against this, and would like to address some concerns that were raised by the neighborhood. There seems to be some misinformation about in-home daycares versus large daycare centers. An in-home daycare license is needed to care for 7 to 12 children in a residential home. A daycare center is a facility that cares for 13 or more children and requires a large commercial space and parking lot. Large daycare centers typically have multiple classrooms with 15 to 20 kids in each room, and kids are separated by their ages. The conditional use permit for an in-home daycare of 7 to 12 children requires the home to continue to look and function as a residential home. My home is not being converted into a daycare. There will be no signs out front, and I will continue to use the majority of the house as my own residence. There are guidelines set by the Department of Health and Welfare that require a minimum amount of indoor and outdoor space for each child. Although I usually only care for 8 children at a time, not 12, I will still have to be licensed for up to 12 and meet the space guidelines for that. When I have children of my own, they will also be counted into this number that I can't exceed. And it is important for me to have my own children and be able to care for them at my home with the other children I love to work with. Many people have in-home childcare businesses, but unfortunately, not all are licensed or follow the regulations for approval to care for more than 6 children. There are likely other daycares in this subdivision that many are not aware of, but I have chosen to follow all state and city regulations to have my daycare properly licensed. I am licensed by the state, undergo inspections on a yearly basis, and participate in 20 hours of additional training through Idaho STARS each year. My employees are always in compliance with criminal background checks and are CPR and first aid certified. I graduated with a degree in early childhood education in 2021 and have been working at the same in-home daycare for 5 years now. I bought the business last year when the former owner was diagnosed with ALS and was unable to continue to work. I purchased the daycare from her, not only to carry on her program for her, but because I didn't want our current daycare families to have to find other care for their children. And that is why I'm here today, to get a conditional use permit to be licensed for up to 12 children again, so I don't have to lose some of my enrolled families. Cherry Blossom Childcare is not only a small community, but an extension of my family. I bought my house in this subdivision because it is in a safe, family-friendly neighborhood with nearby parks. The children I care for are under constant supervision, especially when we are outside. I know that noise was a concern for some, so I wanted to reassure you that they are never left unattended while outside. My daycare assistant or I will always be out there while they are playing. They are well-behaved children and great listeners. Sure, my kids may laugh and play outside with typical sounds of any family playing, but since my kids are always supervised, they are not screaming. The noise my children make will not be a disturbance like perhaps a large family with unattended children. I have the same concerns as you regarding traffic in a neighborhood where many children are out playing in the streets and may not be watching for cars. We all need to be diligent about driving slow and look for children while driving or pulling out of driveways. Daycare parents also have small children, so they understand these dangers and are more aware of children. Many neighbors speed by my house and cut the corner on North Thomas Paine Way, so I understand the concern. However, since my house is close to Paul Revere Avenue and the Cherry Avenue exit, my daycare parents will be entering and exiting through there and will not be adding any extra traffic to Thomas Paine Way. There are really only 6 houses on each side of East Savannah River Street that my parents will be driving by. My daycare parents will not impact the traffic flow or the parking because their drop-off and pickup times are staggered throughout the day. I have 2 open parking spots in my driveway for my assistant and a parent to park while dropping off. My employee is only there for 3 hours in the morning from 9 a.m. to noon, so the other spot in my driveway becomes available for pickup time. I also have a parking spot on the street in front of my house for the parents to use if the driveway is full, which would be rare. My parents are only in the home for a couple of minutes at drop-off and pickup, and I have record of these staggered times that I submitted to the commission as well. None of my parents will be parking in front of neighbors' homes since I have up to 3 parking spots available for them. I provide quality, affordable childcare in my home, and it is a safe place for families to bring their children, which is often hard to find. It provides a conveniently located service for residents in the area or anyone in need of daycare services, which provides an essential service for the community. I invested my money into Franklin Village in the city of Nampa, and I plan to be a good neighbor, contribute to the community, and abide by the rules set forth in the conditional use permit. I hope I have alleviated the concerns that some neighbors brought forth, and I thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Any questions? Ms. Barnhart? Okay, we'll hear from staff and we'll call you back up if we have any.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you,
Christy.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Christy Watkins, Principal Planner for the City of Nampa. The request before you this evening is for approval of the CUP for a daycare for up to 12 children at 7679 East Savannah River Street. The proposed findings that staff feels are appropriate in this case are that an in-home daycare for up to 12 children will not affect the location, size, and design of the residential dwelling, as it will provide designated indoor play spaces and a fenced yard. It will not affect the livability of the abutting properties, again, because it has a designated indoor play space and fenced yard. The pickup and drop-off times are staggered throughout the day and take place within the designated driveway area of the home. It will not cause a harmful effect upon the neighborhood character, as it will provide, again, that indoor play space and a fenced yard with staggered pickup times in the driveway. Another of the criteria for a conditional use permit, an in-home daycare up to 12 children will provide a convenient and functional environment and will be as attractive as the nature of the use and its location warrants. Because this is a residential home, it will remain a residential home in its primary function, and that will not turn into a commercial use. The third criteria for a conditional use permit, the daycare use provides a conveniently located service for residents in the area or anyone in need of daycare services, which provides an essential service for the community. Should you choose to deny this, you could propose these reasonings for your denial. It will adversely affect the livability because it could cause 5 to 10 times the normal traffic for the residents and create parking issues for the neighbors. Now, 5 to 10 times, that's a traffic engineer term. What that means is it might be 5 or 10 more cars in a peak hour, which is not a lot for a residence. An in-home daycare will have a harmful effect upon the neighborhood because the lot is small and the adjacent structures are too close in proximity. It may have an adverse effect on the livability because of the increase in noise or the potential nuisance caused by up to 12 children. So those are the criteria for the CUP that you need to find tonight, whether you choose to approve or deny. The property is located inside the city limits and is zoned RS6. On the north, south, east, and west is all RS6 and is completely surrounded by the Franklin Village subdivision with Orabrandt Park to the west. So the purpose of this request is that the applicant is moving to this new address and is transferring her daycare license. The home has a fenced and gated backyard for safe play outside and specific play spaces inside. The surrounding land uses are all single-family residential. Access would be from Cherry Lane. There's also access into the subdivision from Franklin Boulevard and Birch. The applicant states that the The specific portion of the home is to be used for daycare purposes, and they will only have one employee, as is permitted in an in-home daycare use. The applicant has indicated that the traffic drop-off and pickup times will not create a nuisance for the neighborhood. According to the schedule of uses in the RS zone in Nampa, they can submit a home occupation registration for up to 6 children and get their appropriate fire inspections, which she has done. If they choose to have over 6 children in the home, they then need to apply for a CUP. This does not change the residential nature of the home or make it a commercial business. There were some comments about what the complaint procedures were if it did turn into a nuisance. I have outlined that for you in the staff report. We do have a code section, 10110D, that talks through what those complaint procedures are. The commission shall review home occupations upon receipt of 2 written complaints from 2 separate households located within 300 feet of the affected property. Said complaints shall set forth the nature of the objection. At that time, staff could revoke the CUP if those are found to be credible. If that was revoked, then they could come back before you again and request to reinstate the CUP and have that conversation with you. So the correspondence that was received, we received public input that was both in support and in opposition. For those in support, either live near or are attending the childcare currently, and they describe the drop-off and pickup times and locations. The ones in opposition voice their concerns about traffic, parking, registered sex offenders in the area, proximity to adjacent homes, and home values when near an in-home business. We also received comments from city agencies like engineering in regards to that traffic count that I discussed, and the fire district with the requirement for the width of the secondary opening to be 32 inches wide. So these are the conditions of approval as listed in your staff report. And these are your potential motions. I will stand for any questions.
Christie, in the letters that we received in opposition, I want to ask a couple of questions, if I could, please. One of them was, well, several of them talked about the width of the street being so narrow. Is this street any narrower than most streets?
Commissioner Kehoe, they are not. They're probably somewhere between 42 and 45 feet wide. I don't know that for sure. But they would be a typical local street where you could have parking on both sides. That might narrow it down to a single lane of travel, but actually that makes it safer.
Yes.
So,
Right. And also, does health and welfare have any, there's another, addressing another letter. Does health and welfare have any restrictions on taking kids on walks in the neighborhood? Can a daycare with one adult take 10 kids on a walk without any violation of health and welfare rules?
Commissioner Kehoe, you may want to direct that question to the applicant. I am unfamiliar with health and welfare's requirements.
That's all the questions I had then. Thank you.
Okay.
I have one, Christie, and it might be half for you and half for the applicant. Sounds like there's a minimum amount of area required per kid, whether it's inside or outside, but we also have a maximum area permitted for home occupation. Does that 25% apply in this case?
Commissioner Morgan, so yeah, the 25% is typically, a room in the house that you would
Right.
use as an office space. And again, depending on the square footage of the house, that could vary. In this case, when you've got children that need to be in the kitchen to eat and they need play space and they typically have a classroom, and we do allow for one employee to be in attendance there due to the number of children. The rules for the in-home daycare aren't quite the same as a regular in-home occupation where you're just using one room for an office. So they kind of spread out across the house.
Okay, so there's an exception in the code to the 25% rule for in-home daycare.
I don't think it's stated specifically that way. I think it's
But
assumed.
we've allowed it. Okay, that was my question, is if the minimum that she's required to have per the whatever guideline she has conflicts with the maximum we usually permit for a home occupation.
For daycare.
Okay.
It is, I mean, I can't go in there and measure it, right? Like,
Well, I
I'm not
mean,
going to
it
go in
seems-
there and make sure that all the kids are staying in their 25% space.
Well, of course, but I mean, it just, the floor plan that she shows indicates the space that would be used for this is more than 25%. And it makes sense, everything you said makes sense, but I didn't know if that violated the code or if there's a reason we're okay with that or.
Yeah, 25% is kind of, well, a guideline.
Okay. That answers my question then.
Any other questions? All right, we will open public testimony. Karen, do you have the sheet? Or the-
Caroline Barnhart?
Hi, my name's Carolyn Barnhart, and I am actually Jenna's mother, but I live at 4113 North Linwood Way in Meridian. And I'm also a nurse practitioner, but on my day off, I am Jenna's assistant from 9 to 12. So one thing, just to answer the question, I'm just obviously in support of this, but reading through all the regulations, we were really careful on that, and the regulation is for 25% of the house to be solely for the in-home occupation. So those 2 rooms that you saw on the slide up there are a 12 by 11 room, I believe, and it's, the rest of the house can be used, but the key definition is that it's solely 25% or less. So it's definitely less. Her house is a 1,620 square foot home. So just to address that, I know she does have the staff to child ratios, and she can address that when she comes up as far as the walking the children in the neighborhood. She has those guidelines for you as well. But as far as safety in the streets, everything that she does is very safe. She follows all the standards and regulations, like she had said. In walking to the park, the children wear bright yellow bandanas as well, so they're very visible. And typically when she goes to the park is in the morning when she has another helper with her as well. And I think that's all I had to say. I'm just really in support for her, of course, and her business.
Thank you.
Thanks. Mhm.
Guillermo Flores?
Yeah, hi, I'm Guillermo Flores, and I own a residence in the Franklin subdivision, just
Address, please.
17139 North Thomas Paine Way, Nampa, Idaho 83686. Good?
Okay, yep.
Good.
Go ahead.
Perfect. I heard you say something about you did questions, or there were, I didn't get a chance to, I've been busy, I didn't get a chance to submit some of these questions, but you'd had some property value concerns, you'd had some traffic concerns, and you mentioned it's safer when there's 2 cars on the side and people are running down the middle. If you're going one way, I would say yes, but if you're running both ways, then it's a smaller area. And so traffic may be there. That was one of my concerns, but she just mentioned there were staggered times, so that's kind of cool.
I think she was just saying the street's
Yeah,
designed
well,
to
they're
be
not
wide
wide.
enough.
Yeah, they're pretty small. Like, they're not, like, I've lived in other subdivisions in this one.
Yeah, it's an engineering
Yeah,
deal.
they're pretty tiny, compared to other places I've lived here in Idaho, in different cities. What will that do? What does rezoning one property in a subdivision much like this change as far as property value for everyone else around them?
But it's not a rezone, it's just, we're giving her a permit, or if we approve it, we would be granting her a permit to operate the
Okay.
daycare, and it's only for her, right? So if she moves,
She takes it with her.
it goes away.
Okay. And if she stays there, I think loans are 30 years, so she hangs out there for 15, 20 years. Has any of you guys, much wiser than myself, seen or heard or been testimonied that it does impact the property value of these places?
We have a
I mean,
residential
I know
real
that
estate
you guys
right
have,
next
yeah,
to
you
me
guys
here.
probably know a lot more than I do, so I'm gonna ask a bunch of questions. And so that doesn't do anything to those in the long run?
I've been real estate agent for 20 years here in the valley, and
Perfect.
yeah, it won't affect it, and if anything, it would help, because people want to have, if they're working, they want to have close proximity for dropping off the kids. They don't want to run 2 hours away, drop them off, and then go back to work. It's a lot nicer to have these in the local neighborhoods so that people can use them and drop their kids off right there. They know the other kids in the neighborhoods, and I've never seen a study once in 20 years that it affects any home values whatsoever.
Okay, you haven't, okay. Second, what was the other one I just had? Are there more of these permits? She'd mentioned that there may be more of these permits that people are doing in this subdivision that we're unaware of now. Would she be the first in this area?
Don't know.
They don't even need a permit for up to 6, right?
Correct.
It's a home occupation registration. We do know about it.
Yeah, but they.
So if they have less than 6 kids, you'll never know about
They
it.
don't have to get a conditional use permit.
Gotcha.
We can ask if there's others in the neighborhood.
You're just curious if
Yeah.
there is.
You're just burning. I
Cool.
don't want to get right. Okay. See ya. Thank you. Next.
Lincoln McCready.
Howdy, I'm also a resident. Do you want my address also?
Yes.
Okay.
Name and address, please.
Sure. My name is Lincoln McCready. I live at 17127 North Thomas Paine Way.
Thank you. Good.
I was mainly concerned about what level of recourse we had if she hired a bunch more employees and suddenly a bunch of the parking was taken up, and I'm totally satisfied by the write-up. So I'm all in favor of this. That's all.
Okay. Thank you.
Cassandra Gok.
Hello, my name's Cassandra Goki, and I live at 13127 South Catawba River Avenue here in Nampa. I am for passing this for Jenna. Both of my children have been in her care for the past 2 years since we've moved to Nampa, when she was just an employee of the other daycare, as well as when she chose to buy the business and start Cherry Blossom Daycare. I just wanted to come and advocate for her and support for her, one, for just her professionalism and what she brings as far as providing childcare for our children. Not only is Jenna providing the care for the kids and making sure that there are quality people who are helping her, she also has provided curriculum for the kids to go through so that they're prepared if they were to go to another preschool full-time or to go to kinder. And one comment I wanted to say regarding my older son is his teacher said how well he was prepared for kindergarten and how far ahead he was of other children in his class just from being able to get the education and socialization that he did in the daycare. I also wanted to speak to, this is my younger son Isaiah, and he is currently in Cherry Blossom Daycare. And he was born during the pandemic, and like a lot of the kids or many children in the pandemic, he's had a little bit of a speech delay because of that. And in the time that he has been with Jenna, his speech has just exploded exponentially. He's enjoyed being able to interact with the other children and learned words and phrases to be able to say just by being able to interact with them. So being that me and my husband both work full-time and trying to find quality childcare with someone that you trust to watch your child all day while you're at work and doing things for the community, I just want to say that I hope that this does get passed and that you just know what a wonderful resident she is and professional she is to be in the childcare industry here in Nampa. So thank you.
Thank you. Does Isaiah want to say anything? I'm just
Can you
kidding.
say hi?
Good. All right.
Ashley Crummett.
My name's Ashley Crummett. I live at 173-1 North Thomas Paine Way. And I guess first I kind of have a question. She said that drop-off and pickup is staggered, but what does that mean? Like, is it staggered within a 1-hour time frame or over the entire day? Because it was my understanding it would be staggered. I could picture like, oh gosh, I can't read that. Is that the answer?
We'll ask her to kind of.
In like 10-minute
drill down
increments
on
or
that.
something?
Yeah.
Because I am very concerned about the traffic. She says, it said that the traffic won't be affected at all, but I wonder if she has driven between 7 and 8:30 in the morning out of that entry and exit every day through the school year. I have. I drive my kids to school every day, and my husband, and the bus comes through, and she's on a corner. And that corner can become quite blind when people are parked there. And adding the extra cars and making it, even if they're on each side in one way, so if all of those cars are coming within that window, that busy window of before school, after school, there's a lot of traffic just in that little loop around Thomas Paine Lighthouse and out to Cherry. And then when you go out to Cherry to the main road, there's no stop in oncoming traffic, so cars will start to back up to leave the neighborhood to access the schools. And as a mother who utilizes that every day, and I've invested in this neighborhood too, it concerns me greatly that the staggered maybe will affect right there on the street, but not getting out there and just the general turn on that street.
Gotcha. We'll ask her to kind of explain that.
Oh, especially, and one person, because a man said on Facebook he was trying to alleviate concerns that usually when parents drop off things, he's like, 3 minutes, you're just like there, drop off the kid, leave. And I'm inferring, but it kind of sounds like these parents are kind of in a rush they want to get it done, they got to get to work, they go in, they drop off the kid and leave. And that's also kind of a concern when there's lots of cars on the same stretch of road, trying to get to work, trying to get to school. They're all in a rush. You got a one-way thing, you say it's safer, but I've been on declaration when it's one way and it doesn't feel safer as a driver. And I'm very concerned because that'll be right around the corner at my main exit from the house. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So we have.
That's all we have? Okay. Is there anybody else in the attending tonight that'd like to speak for, against, or undecided on this proposal? Right. Ms. Barnhart, you want to come back up and address some of the concerns?
The first thing that I'll address is
Can you name and address for the record again?
Oh,
Good. Karen, you all right? Okay.
okay. The first thing that I was going to address is the staff to child ratio. And it actually goes by a point system in Idaho. I know other places they have like 6 kids to 1 teacher. But in Idaho, each staff member can have up to 12 points. And so for 2 years to under 3 years old is 1.5 points. And then from 3 years old to under 5, it's 1 point. And then anywhere from 5 years old and up, it's 0.5 point. So if I had all my kids back, which I have 9 enrolled, but some are gone for the summer, I would only have 10 points because I only have 2 2.5-year-olds right now. And then the rest are 3 and 4. So that would be with 9 kids.
If one person goes over 12 points, you need another staff member.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So if that were to happen, then I would have to have another person there, or I wouldn't have another child be there. And I'm usually good about, whenever a new kid comes on, I always just see what days I have available and then kind of schedule them, and then to make sure I don't go over those ratios. And then I guess the other thing was the health and welfare stuff. The required space per child is 35 square feet. And so between the 2 rooms that I use for the childcare, and then if I were to count in part of my living room for whenever they're out there, or the dining room, that would give them 474 square feet inside. And then outside they would have, altogether, it would be 1,750 square feet. So they would have more than enough space to be around in there. As far as the drop-off and pickup stuff goes, I had sent in check in and out times from, I think it was last week, the 22nd. And so you can kind of see those. Usually, some of them are in within a couple not a couple minutes, but like 30-ish minutes. But my first child gets there at 7:30 almost every day. And then I have another one that'll come around 8. And then usually from then on, it's like 8:45 or 9 or 9:15. Usually my last one gets there at 9:30. And then I do have some that get picked up, like they just come for a preschool morning, so then they go home at like 11:45 or noon. And so a parent would come then. But then usually in the afternoon, kids go home either by 3:15. It's pretty much kind of like every 15 minutes, but not, I don't have that many kids, so it's not like all the time that they'll be there. But I actually haven't lived in the subdivision during the school year. I moved there in May of this year, so I didn't get to see the traffic going in and out. Plus, I didn't have the preschool there at that time, so I was at work during those time frames. But I feel like there was something else. The parents driving, being in a rush. Usually the only time that they would be in a rush is when they're coming in to get their kid. It's not when they're driving away. Because usually they just park really fast and they come in. They'll talk to me for maybe a couple minutes just to see how the day went, and then they'll get back in their car, load up their kid, and then watch where they're going and back out and everything, and then go out through Cherry. I've never seen any of them speeding away or anything, and I have a big window right by my driveway where that's actually where one of the playrooms is, and so I kind of sit there and watch and see what cars are coming and if their parents are coming, and but I haven't noticed at least any of my parents going super fast when they're leaving. Like, I feel like they're never that much in a rush that they need to just like go super fast. But yeah, but I feel like that was it, I guess.
Ms. Barnhart? My question was about health and welfare. Do they have any kind of restrictions on your taking children for a walk? I mean, if you're walking, they talk about the cars being parked.
Mm-hmm.
They say if one person can't take more than 7, or is it the same point system you mentioned earlier?
I'm pretty sure it's the same point system. I haven't seen anything on the guidelines about that, but I'm pretty sure as long as they're in my care wherever we are, I think it's the same point system.
And also, if you're going, say you're going to go down to some park, do you get permission from the parents to take the kids to the park? Or, okay.
Yeah, I let them know. I decide the day before if we're going to go or not, and then I let them know. And I also have forms that they sign when their child is enrolled that gives me permission to take them on field trips and stuff like that. But we just walk places.
Right. Well, exercise is good for them.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So you said you had 3 parking spaces on your property?
Mm-hmm.
Does that count where you would park your car, or?
I park my car in the garage.
So with those 3 spots that are open, would you ever have a time where you would need more than those 3 spots, but based off of your check-in and check-out times?
Maybe for a second, the only time I've ever had 2 cars in the driveway was if someone had just gotten there and another person was leaving. So it's kind of like a couple minutes or maybe a minute at a time where they're like leaving and then someone had just gotten there. But yeah, I haven't run into that yet.
How many employees do you plan on having eventually?
Only 1. In the summer right now I have 2, but they come different days. But before that I only had 1, and I would go back to only having 1 employee.
Any other questions? Comments? Thank you.
Thank you.
Make a motion to close public hearing.
Second.
Motion and a second to close the public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, public hearing's closed.
Mr. Chairman, I had written down some answers to some of the letters that we received from the parents.
Huh?
They're not all here, so I'd like to address some of those if I could, please. I'll try and stay away from the ones that have already been addressed by the applicant.
Are you deliberating or?
Yeah, it's part of deliberation, yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
One person wrote about not following the rules. With a conditional use permit, as Christie mentioned earlier, if there's a violation, it goes back to them, they evaluate the evaluation, and look at the charge that was made against the person, or the daycare in this case, and they could rescind it.
You're talking about if there's a complaint from a neighbor? Yeah, okay.
So
Yeah,
it's-
code compliance would go out and verify the complaint if it was real or. Code compliance? No?
I think it's zoning, planning staff, right?
Yes.
It would depend on the complaint.
Well,
but
that's true.
We would use city staff to go and verify whatever that complaint was.
So there's a way out if something happens and that they were not aware of, you know, they would have a way to address that. Tom, you're a real estate agent. One of the letters mentions the fact that the loss of equity in the home, if this becomes a daycare or childcare, how would you lose equity in your home if it's a daycare?
I have never seen it, and like I was mentioning earlier, I have never seen any study or report done that has addressed anything like that. I mean, some people just have preferences where they want to live and what they want to live next to, but it's not going to affect your equity. There's going to be somebody that'll want to buy it.
Another letter addressed why she needed the 12, the CUP for the 12 children. And as she mentioned, some of those children in the future are going to be her children. So that's why she has more than she needs now. It's not like she's planning on adding more staff and kids to her organization. She's just preparing for the future. And somebody else mentioned about it's not zoned for a daycare, but it is zoned for a daycare. It's part of the, if it's a 12 or less, and it's in the subdivision, it's addressed through a CUP. If it's more than 12, it has to be in a commercial area, but this is not, so it's perfectly legal for it to be just the way it is. And somebody mentioned about, in fact, several times they mentioned about kids in the street. I don't know what kind of parents you guys are, but you should not be letting your kids play in the street.
My kids play in the street all the time.
I tell my kids to play in the street. We don't live on a busy street, though. Kind of busy.
I could tell you a story. When I was with the Boise City Planning and Zoning, I took a ride along with the police department. We actually got into a chase because the guy had he was drunk, run into two people, seriously injured one of them, and the police were trying to catch the guy. We turned the corner and there was a bunch of kids playing in the street, and there was a basketball bouncing down the street. And I thought, oh my God, this guy hit somebody. So it can happen. Don't let your kids play in the street. I mean, it's just ludicrous. And they also mentioned about having a business like this in Nampa. You could have a gun sales business in your house. You can repair guns and sell them from your house. I would much rather have a daycare in my neighborhood than I would somebody selling guns. Do we know how many daycare versus guns we have, gun permits?
I've never done that study.
We got to look into that.
Okay.
I mean, because we get an awful lot of gun sales, don't we?
Yes, we do.
Is that an official request? To
Yes,
look
it
into
is.
The ratio?
Yes, it is.
Are there any other home occupation daycare permits in this subdivision? Do we know that?
I did not do an analysis of this subdivision.
Okay.
We don't get these requests that often, and this is a fairly new subdivision. The home occupation registration is for when you are caring for 1 to 6. So typically what we see is if someone's wanting to get reimbursement from the state for food and those kinds of things, they can get on a program with the state. The state requires that they be registered. If someone's watching 2 or 3 kids, their neighbor's kids, whatever, a lot of times we don't know about it. So it would be very hard to determine how many operating daycares there are.
I was just wondering, like, how many CUPs, if there's any
Yeah.
other CUPs in
Looks
the
like Parker
immediate area.
has looked it up, and so far in that subdivision, it's the only one.
This will be the first? Okay.
Another letter addressed occupations in the subdivision, and they mentioned dog daycare. Is there such a?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's a racket.
There is.
Would that be allowed though?
It's a little bit different heading. So here I have noted that the home occupation daycare is an allowed use with a CUP in the RS zone where the yellow highlights are. A doggy daycare would be more like a kennel. So they would still need to come and get a conditional use permit from you all, but it would be a slightly different set of conditions for the dogs.
Yeah. And they also mentioned the detailing business, which I assume is probably like detailing a car. Would that be allowed?
Yeah, so we do have the conditional use permit for auto repair, but we probably would do the same thing under a detailing heading too, where they aren't actually repairing the vehicle, but they're bringing people's cars in to work on them.
And another one's an oil change business. Now, we've had lots of those, not lots, but a number of them. People do minor repairs.
Yep,
And a bed and breakfast would also be allowed.
bed and breakfast would be allowed.
So there's nothing different really about this application we have tonight. There's lots of other businesses that have to go through the same process,
That is correct.
and they're allowed. So why should we say no to this guy and yes to everybody else? That's all I had.
So
Excellent.
I think this is, and I've said it before, and I think a lot of us agree that when someone comes before us like this and asks, they're trying to do everything right. Because like has been said, it wouldn't be too hard, I wouldn't think, for her to just have this thing and not tell anybody. And just operate it without telling the neighbors, without telling the city. And what are the chances that anybody would ever find out? I don't know. But she made the effort. She's filed the paperwork. She's here before us tonight. I think she's trying her best to do everything right, so I really don't see anything wrong with it.
She's
Granted
doing
them
it not
before.
because she got caught doing it, but because
Right,
she's doing it.
exactly. Not because
We got a
somebody
lot
told
of
her she
those.
had to, but because she's trying to do everything.
Yeah, I don't think it'd be pretty hard to make a case that she's not following the rules and taking all the steps. To me, it's, to quote Chairman Van Acker, we're a land use board. We should be discussing that. And to me, it's weighing the two criteria, the impact to the neighborhood versus providing an essential service. And I think that there have been some valid concerns brought forth about the impact to the neighborhood, and I think she has responded to them effectively on all accounts, and I think it's an essential service. Everyone will tell you that we need childcare everywhere, so I'm in favor of this.
Having been a parent that had home daycare, like what she's running, I am behind this 1,000%.
And I'll say again to the traffic, we had two, in the last neighborhood I lived in, we had 2 in-home daycares, one 2 doors down, one across the street, and it was years before I even realized it was there. You know what I mean? And they probably weren't 8 to 9 kids, they were probably closer to 3 to 4 kids, so I'm sure the neighbors will notice the cars, but. I'll do it. I move to approve the conditional use permit for daycare up to 12 children in the RS6 zone at 7679 East Savannah River Street for Jenna Barnhart, Cherry Blossoms Child Care, with findings for approval and conditions listed in the staff report.
Second.
The motion and second to approve this CUP. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that motion carries. And Ms. Barnhart, the CUP will become effective 15 calendar days from the date of this hearing unless an appeal has been filed with the Planning and Zoning Department with the appropriate fee. No action should be taken on the CUP until the appeal period has concluded, and you must confirm with Planning and Zoning staff that there have been no appeals. Okay, thank you. All right, next item on the agenda this evening is another conditional use permit for an auto body shop in a BC zone at 1516 First Street North for Carlos Osorio, Osorio's Auto Body. Is the applicant here? Go on up, state your name and address, and tell us what you'd like to do.
Hello, my name is Carlos Osorio. My address is 15 North Fairview Street here in Nampa. And I'm here to request a conditional use permit for a property at 1516 First Street North. I have worked in the auto body industry for 17 years, and about a year and a half ago, I decided to go forward and start my own business. Where I am currently renting may be getting sold towards the end of the year, and so I'm looking for a new home to continue my business. I do not own the property. The owner is letting me go through this process and see if it is something that will be allowed before I follow through with the purchase. Some things that I think it would be a good area for it is, for one, it's in a business commercial area, and there is already an existing body shop and an automotive/diesel repair shop in the area. When it comes to traffic, I don't believe it would be an issue because that street is not very heavily trafficked. And also, I am self-employed. This is just going to be myself, and my main type of work is classic car restoration, and those cars take time. So if I have 3 projects going at once, that can be up to 5 months of work for me, and those get dropped off once, and then they get picked up. Hours of my operation would be like most businesses, 8 to 5:30. When it comes to equipment, at my location now, I have a professional grade spray booth that filters out all the paint particles and everything before it goes out into the air. Here's a sketch of my idea for a building, of course, subject to change on what the city allows and what else I need to do. And also, I think it would improve curb appeal to the area versus just the empty abandoned lot. And as of now, that's all I have until I know if it will be approved or not. So thank you for your time and consideration.
Okay, question.
What is the business next door?
What's that?
What is that business next door to you?
So this right here in the picture is La Copa. It is a bar.
Nothing to do with you, though.
No, nothing to do with me, no.
You might go there for lunch, but that's about all.
If they serve food, maybe.
And you're going to build it, are you going to build the building, or is the owner of the lot going to build the building?
No, so if the conditional use permit is granted, I would follow through with the purchase, and then I would...
So you'll purchase the property?
Yes,
and
I
then
would
build
purchase the
building.
property and then
Okay.
get with the builder to...
Well, it's got to look better than what it looks like now.
I would believe so.
Any other questions?
Nope, thank you.
All right, we'll call you back up if we have any questions after staff in testimony. Parker.
Thank you, Chairman, Commissioners. The action requested, approval or denial of a CUP for auto body business here. This is BC zoned, a mix of zoning around it, BC and RD. Some of them are single-family homes that are zoned commercial. Some of them are zoned RD. To the south is the bar, as was mentioned. And then to the west is the railroad, zoned IL. So this may look familiar to you, this property. In January, this body voted to approve a CUP for a multifamily building, a sixplex. If you remember that, that decision was appealed and went to City Council in February. They voted to deny the appeal, upholding your decision, and they added some conditions to that in regards to buffering that residential type use, that being the sixplex against the bar to the south. Whereas this current proposal isn't a residential use, so there may not be those same concerns.
Hey, Parker?
Yes.
I don't remember if you told us, who was it that appealed? It wasn't the business owner there, was it?
The appellant was the bar, Lacopa.
It was? Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yep. The conclusions of law for a conditional use permit, this has been covered briefly. Compatible, it needs to be compatible with the abutting properties, provide a convenient functional living environment, as well as enhancing the successful operation of the area and providing essential service. There's a number of code compliance issues here. Those would ultimately be taken care of when the property is developed. The engineering division had some comments, nothing really. Those would be taken care of with development as well. There's a street view of the property. As you can see, there's some vehicles there and it's a little overgrown. The site plan proposed, this is obviously just a sketch. It would be reviewed when they submit a building permit. The area is kind of transitioning from a residential use to a BC zone use. This has been BC zoned prior to 1971. It's still trying to reach that commercial potential. The future land use designation is community mixed use. So the majority of it is intended to be commercial here. The proposed business would be subject to our performance standards in Title 10, Chapter 1. These standards are for businesses as well as neighboring properties. They limit your emission of smoke, fumes, odor, gases, lights beyond your property boundary line. So if there were issues with the neighbors as far as the noise coming from the business at a late hour, then that can be addressed through the code compliance. The setbacks here, it's a 0-foot setback on the sides and then the 15-foot setback on the front. Again, that will be reviewed with the building permit, and the building will be subject to design review standards, so it'll be reviewed according to that. The conditions of approval, one thing to point out is that engineering is requiring that they submit a floodplain development permit due to the location in the floodplain, but that's not something out of the normal in this area. The potential findings are in the staff report, and a motion there for you. I'll stand for questions.
Any questions?
Is the multifamily project dead?
Is it done? Is that what you?
Dead.
Assuming so, being that this is a new CUP. It's the same property owner that owns it. He's just selling it to the applicant here if they can get approval.
And I take it the bar considers this to be less objectionable to them?
Compatible.
Yeah.
In a sense.
Right. Because if he had the apartment, or people would be complaining about the noise, calling the cops all the time and everything.
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense. Probably better fit.
All right. We'll open public testimony for this item. Nobody signed up? Okay, is there anybody present that would like to voice their concerns or anything? Okay, seeing none, I'll take a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Who motioned it?
Steve.
Steve did. Sorry,
Sitting right next to you, didn't hear me?
I got confused.
I spoke a little louder.
All right, we have a motion and a second to close the public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, what do you think?
I think it's going to be great.
Yep.
Definitely improvement from what's there, so.
Yeah, heck of an improvement up there.
Go for it.
Okay, I'll move to approve the conditional use permit for an auto body shop in the BC zone at 1516 First Street North for applicant Carlos Osorio with the recommended conditions and adopt the proposed findings listed in the staff report.
Second.
Motion by Brett, second by Drew. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right.
Congratulations.
CUP is approved, and Mr. Osorio, the CUP will become effective 15 calendar days from the date of this hearing unless an appeal has been filed with the Planning and Zoning Department with the appropriate fee. No action should be taken on the CUP until the appeal period has concluded, and you must confirm with P&Z staff that there have been no appeals. Okay? All right, thanks. Have a good evening. Next on the agenda is a zoning text amendment for Title 10, Chapter 3-2, Land Use Table, to add medical-related business as a permitted use in the BN zoning district for Connor Brown. Come on up, Mr. Brown.
So that's me, Connor Brown. I live at 833 Chicago Street here in Nampa. I'm looking to run a physical therapy business in a business neighborhood zone, and I just want to make sure that I'm following all the rules. So I'm trying to get this changed so that I can allow this. The zone in specific that I'm looking at is down in the corner of 12th and Greenhurst, where the Albertsons is. And that zone, there's a couple of spaces down towards the end that I've signed a lease for, and they, from everything I can tell, have been rather unsuccessful areas there. A lot of stores have turnover in that zone. It's right across the street from an assisted living facility, so it's already kind of got a medical application to it. And I'm just looking to place a family physical therapy place there. Her name is Idaho Family Physical Therapy, and trying to create a local brand out of that and serve the community.
You can help me with my shoulder then, is that what you're saying?
Absolutely, I've got space for you. I've got openings, I got one tomorrow, I think, if you want to come down, so. But, yeah, that's all I have to say on it. So.
All right, we will call you back up if we have questions. Thank you. Christy.
Hey, thank you, Chairman and Commissioners. Christy Watkins, Principal Planner for the City of Nampa. The request before you this evening is to make a code change to allow medical uses in the BN zone. The applicant stated his request in 1032, service and office land uses, adding a P under the BN neighborhood zoning district for medical, dental, or similar clinic and related services to be allowed as an outright permitted use. That's what it would look like as the change in the chart. Would allow for typical chiropractors, physical therapists, dentist's office, those kinds of things, the things you'd find that would need to be directly, accessible by a neighborhood. So staff has found that it meets the code required to make a change to a city code, and these are your potential motions. I will stand for any questions.
Christy, sometimes we do things with all the good intentions in the world, and then we find out later on that we messed up somewhere along the line. Any possibility we could be messing up something else down the road?
Commissioner Kehoe, we actually did mess up.
Oh.
That's why this fell off.
Here.
It fell off the table when we made our last round of code changes. It needs to be put back on.
Okay.
I was kind of wondering why it wasn't on.
Yeah.
Like dentist
We-
and a
we-
BN,
we
that
messed
sounds
up.
pretty normal.
Yeah, that's what
Neighborhood business.
So was it a C before or just blank?
No, it was a P.
No,
We
I
can-
mean,
we can
so
des-
Right now, it's blank.
Right now it's blank. It was a P before. We had consolidated some uses like professional offices. We took out like very specific things like chiropractors and dentists' offices and stuff like that, and we kind of combined them under one heading, professional office or medically related. And so this just didn't get transferred into that neighborhood business zone as a permitted use. So we just missed it.
So does he get like a Starbucks card or something for taking his time fixing our problem?
I think he should.
Yeah. Okay. Probably, I would too, yeah. Okay, thank you.
No further questions?
Any other questions? All right, public hearing. Anybody here? Do we, well, I guess you're the sign-up person now, so, all right, nobody signed up. I'll entertain a motion. Oh, anybody else here that wants to say anything or online? Nope. Okay.
I'll second.
We have a motion from Peggy and a second from Brett to close the public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Public hearing is closed.
Pretty much a slam dunk.
Well, let's get
Motion.
out of trouble, okay?
Get a motion.
Okay.
Need a motion.
Anybody object?
Nope.
Mr. Chairman, I move to recommend approval of the changes to Title 10 Planning and Zoning, Chapter 3, with staff proposed findings as presented in the staff report and directed by the Planning and Zoning Director and City Attorney. Draft an ordinance for reading in a future City Council meeting for the City of Nampa.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that will go to City Council with a recommendation of approval. Thanks for finding our mistake. Sorry, it's going to take you a few months.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
All right. We have a motion and a second to adjourn the meeting.
Fourth.
Miller, second. Third. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we're adjourned.
Nay.
Oh, we make that motion.
Nay. Roll call.
Roll call. Those are easy.